Hello and good afternoon. My name is Molly Bickley. I am a library technician on the events team at the Ann Arbor District Library. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to today's event. Today, we are joined by Kara Hoppe for a discussion of her work and book, Baby Bomb, a relationship survival guide for new parents. Baby Bomb is based on the premise that successful partnering is the first step for couples to become successful parents. This book will help you build a secure, functioning relationship with your partner so you can both offer secure attachment to your child or children. Kara Hoppe, MA-MFT, is a psychotherapist, teacher, feminist, and a mother. She's spent more than a decade as an inclusive therapist, working with individuals and couples toward healing and growing and toward becoming grounded, integrated people with better access to their own instincts, wisdom, and creativity. Hoppe also offers virtual retreats for parents and expectant couples based on her book, Baby Bomb. This work and her work has been featured in The Atlantic, Parents Magazine, Fatherly, and YourTango, among other publications. She lives with her husband and son in Pioneertown, California, and sees clients in private practice via telehealth. This book is co-written with Stan Tatkin, author of We Do, Wired for Love, and owner of the PACT Institute. And we are just so excited to have Kara with us today to share about her book and her work. Before I hand it over, just a couple of housekeeping items. This event includes a Q&A after the presentation. The presentation portion of today's event will be recorded and made available on AADL's website. Thank you to everyone joining us live, and to those of you watching later, thank you so much, and welcome, Kara Hoppe.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here in Michigan from California right now.
So exciting.
Yeah. It's springtime here, just like today. What is it like that there?
Oh gosh, it is it's cold here. It's cold here. We got snow yesterday. It warmed up the day before. But it's cold and kind of icy out today. So we're jealous of your spring weather.
Yeah, it's lovely.
We have our crazy Michigan winter that's like spring, winter.
A push and pull back and forth.
Yeah.
Well, shall we jump in?
Yes, please.
Okay. Steve, can you cue the first slide? Okay. So this is me. That's my book. I'm happy to be here. And I wanted to start by talking a bit about why I wrote this book, Baby Bomb, a relationship survival guide for new parents. Let's see, when my son was born, it was over 5 years ago now, and I had been a couple therapist for maybe 7 years. So I thought I knew relationships. It's like, that's what I do on the daily, is work with couples on their relationships. And I'm in a relationship, a long-term relationship with my husband, Charlie. So I was a bit humbled and surprised to really discover how much we were struggling after we had our first son. I really didn't see it coming. I didn't realize how much change was going to happen when they tell you that everything changes when you become a parent. I didn't really think everything was going to change. And boy, I was wrong, because everything sure did change. And when about 9 months, Jude was about 9 months old, I was having dinner with my dear friend and colleague, Stan Tatkin, my co-author, and who's written several books to help couples that Charlie and I go to and I use in my work with couples. We were having dinner and I said to him, like, wow, this whole relationship upheaval after you have a baby is it's a thing. We should write a book about it. And he was game. So that's why we wrote Baby Bomb. It was like what Charlie and I needed. It was what the couples in my practice who were new partners needed. And it's a way, it's like, it's written in a very easy, light way to really change your partnership if you want to after having a child. And it's based on the principles of secure functioning, which is attachment theory in action. And we'll get into attachment theory today, why it's relevant and why we pulled from it for our book, Baby Bomb. And yeah, and it took us a while to get our partnership back on track. And I'd say we're stronger for it. Definitely. And Charlie and I, my husband and I, really got to like level up our relationship after having Jude. And now I'm pregnant. We're having our second. So we're like in this place where we're bringing in all the things we learned with Jude and the stuff I write about in Baby Bomb into real time as we prep for our daughter, Baby Bomb number 2. Yeah. So, yeah, so I guess this is a question for anybody listening, like, or here with us. Just like, did you notice you and your partner having more relationship problems after your first baby was born? You could drop it in the chat if you want to. I just wanted to put that out there to see if anyone else could relate to this. I don't think there's a lot of conversation about it in like popular culture, like with movies and stuff. And I think like relationship problems after baby kind of falls in that huge pile of why didn't anyone tell me about parenthood? Why didn't anyone tell me how much what an impact this was going to have on my partnership? So let's go to the next slide. Yeah, so and like I said at the beginning, I was humbled and surprised on how much like my partnership struggled after having our first child. And then I went as a couple therapist, I went to the research and learned, like, this is from a Gottman study that's not that old. Like I think it's 2008, maybe 2010, but that 67% of couples see their level of satisfaction plummet, you guys, plummet. I mean, that's a word, after the birth of their first child. And in other literature, in addition to the Gottmans, in peer-reviewed literature that I was reading about, like after we had Jude and Charlie and I were going through it and I was working on the book, they were calling it the period after having a child as like a crisis, like a marital partnership crisis. Like they were using the word crisis. And so that is certainly not anyone told me at my baby shower. And that, so I was really surprised that word was used. And I mean, I hope this goes without saying, but I want to say, obviously there's a lot more about having a baby that besides like the crisis impact of it. It's obviously, maybe it's not obviously, but it's a wonderful thing, becoming parents, but it's also difficult. And especially people have become parents during the pandemic. That presents like a whole other series of stressors that, like when we had Jude, we weren't going through. It totally changes your ability to have support and different risk assessment constantly that's going on too. So anyway, if you are watching this or here at this talk and you're struggling with your partner after having a child or children, you're part of the majority. And you can do something about it. And we're going to talk about that today. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. Yeah, so I just wanted to put like some of the common challenges for parents. The sleep deprivation, identity loss, new stressors. sex life, physical life. That would also include like birthing person recovery from the birth, which is a huge continuum of quick recovery to birth injury or birth trauma for pregnant people or birthing people. There's the change in the support system. That's complicated, right? Because like two people who have been like, could be just sons and daughters become parents to, the baby, but then also your parents become grandparents. So there's a whole identity thing happening, not just for the partners, the couple, but for all of the like supporting cast. And that can change people's ability to show up, that change in the support system like that. Also, I think it's important to mention right now in 2022, when we're doing this talk, that support system has been, our support systems very impacted by the pandemic. For, most of 2020, we didn't get to see people. And then, of course, if you became parents in 2020, 2021, or this year, the ability to share your good news, to be seen as a pregnant person, to share your baby, to have the community support, in addition to just like sharing in like the love and the excitement of it, has been really diminished for people. And I've noticed in my practice, my clients that have become parents during this time, it's impacted their mental health. Just as simple as like not being able to be seen and celebrated as being a pregnant person. Or like I said, not being able to share, not even like the baby only for like help and support, which is obviously really important for parents, but even to share the baby in that, like the joy, like here's your granddaughter or your grandson, and not being able to have that ease like we have in years previous. So that's had an impact on people, that's change in support system. I should also say, like, the sleep, we'll get into this I'm going to go back to the sleep deprivation. When we cover the attachment continuum, and that's when we get into like the attachment theory that I drew from when writing Baby Bomb, sleep deprivation can impact where you fall on the attachment continuum. Like you can be like identified as secure attachment, and after 6 months or 9 months of sleep deprivation, you could be having a very different relationship to your sense of safety and security. So that's got an impact on like parents as individuals, as performing as parents, as people, but also as partners. Like, of course, like the identity loss, that change, becoming a parent, what does it mean to be a mother? It can bring up a bunch of issues from your own relationship with your mother or your father. Just thinking like the identity change, that transformation, becoming a different person, and like what that means to you, depending on your relationship with your first family or your experience there. All those new stressors, the hormone storm is real. And I'm not saying storm as like it's something in a misogynistic way, like something that women make up or birthing people make up. It's not like that at all. It's very real. It's very intense during pregnancy and in postpartum. There's a lot going on, and that impacts pregnant people and birthing people's total well-being, their mental health, their ability for sleep, anxiety, depression can all be related to hormone storm. It's very real, and it's an opportunity for non-birthing partners to really be there for their birthing partners and understanding that hormone storm and taking it seriously, and being part of the solution, not not part of the problem. And then finally, there's the vulnerability of that non-existent learning curve when you become parents. It's so vulnerable to be witnessed, not knowing what you're doing, tending to your baby that can't even hold up their head, and then witnessing your partner and that same vulnerability as they're learning how to parent at the same time. Not only is it stressful trying to learn all those cues, and the equipment can be pretty overwhelming too. But also it's just psychologically, it's really vulnerable being witnessed, not knowing what you're doing too. And so it's important, obviously, that partners be sensitive to that for each other. I wish I could ask like how this flow is going for you guys. Is everyone like following and stuff? I'm going to assume that's a double thumbs up and keep going. Okay, cool. Thanks, Raquel. So I want to teach you guys about secure functioning relationships. That is what I teach in Baby Bomb. That's what I teach as a clinician. It's what I practice as a partner. My husband and I practice. Say practice, because it's just a constant showing up and learning again and again and again. So the whole idea of secure functioning relationships is, it says here, but partners are wholeheartedly committed to caring for themselves and each other as their top priority. Well, that's a really big statement. So let's unpack it. What does that mean on a day-to-day basis? And especially as new parents. That means I think an easy way of putting this is we have principles written out in the book about agreeing to care for one another as your top priority. So making sure your partner's okay and you're sharing if you're okay, valuing your own needs. This is so big, especially for birthing people, to still center themselves as important people deserving of care themselves and their partner supporting them in that. And it's all done in secure functioning relationships in a spirit of mutuality, shared power here. We're not talking about a relationship where one person, there's a power thing going on between them. That's not secure functioning. They're sharing power with each other. They're equal partners in co-collaborating whatever kind of relationship they want at that time. It's very fluid because life is, especially when you have a kid or kids in the mix, requires a lot of flexibility and adaptability. And so it has both partners constantly in this kind of lifelong game of improv of yes and. So you're teammates, and that's what you're doing. And the way to get there, you guys, is to decide I want to try that. I want to try this kind of idea and talk about it with your partner. We have a whole chapter about that in the book about breaking it down, because it really requires both partners jumping in the deep end together, because it's truly mutual, both of them. Attachment theory and neuroscience tell us it's the best, it's couples best for yes that's just a fact. Let's go to the next slide and get into attachment theory, where I can bring it in and explain why. Oh, okay, so this is the attachment continuum. This is based on, let me tell you about attachment theory really quick. So John Bowlby, many decades ago, came up with attachment theory by studying infants and their primary caregivers. And he discovered there was 3 different primary types of attachment. There's the secure, and we're saying that's yellow. There's the insecure, anxious ambivalent insecure, and the avoidant insecure. Okay, these are not personality things at all. This is all about safety and security. That's it. And it's also, I want to say, this is what was offered to you by your primary caregiver. They offered you secure attachment, or they offered you insecure attachment, or sometimes like a variation of the two. So if anybody like over the course of this is learning about this and see they identify as red or a blue, this is like not a deficit. It's completely normal. It doesn't mean you can't have a secure functioning relationship. It is just, you have a better idea of who you are in the world and kind of where your vulnerabilities are. Like, when are you going to get scared? Okay. So, attachment shows up in that infant primary relationship, but it also shows up in your relationship with your partner, with your children, with close work colleagues, with friends. And it's all about like, how safe do I feel? So let's learn more about the different attachment styles. Oh, before we wait, sorry, Steve, before we move the slide, I want to say, I made this attachment continuum because my experience as a person, a partner, a person in the world, human being, but as a clinician, is that people actually, and Bowlby says this, and the research says this, that people, even though you have a primary attachment strategy or style, you can move. So if your partnership is in a place where you guys are really taking care of each other, you can move from like a red place to a yellow place, or like an orange place, depending on it. And the same with the blue to the purple. It's very natural to move during times of stress. You can move, especially in early parenthood, you can move from a yellow secure to another color. And then when things get more closer, more connection, you can move into yellow. And the same goes for like work projects and stuff like that. We all have like different attachment to our ability to attach to different things. And sometimes we feel really safe in those attachments and sometimes we don't. And that would be representative as we move around the continuum. Okay, let's go to the next one. So this is just kind of like to get an idea of where you fall in the continuum. And again, this is not about personality. This is about your sense of safety and security in the world. So anybody listening, you can think like, do I identify more as like a blue, an avoidant attachment strategy in the world? Do I think I can take care better of myself than anyone else? Do I have a hard time trusting others for reliable care and nurturing? Do I prefer to be alone? Do I pride myself on being low maintenance? If my partner upsets me, do I need to leave and be alone to recalibrate before I can come back? And I want to mention with this attachment style, this was offered to you by your primary caregiver. And they maybe weren't, they weren't as attuned as they could have been for your sense of security. And then so you found ways to adapt yourselves because we're wired to feel safe in the world. So to feel safe in the world, it might have been safer for you growing up to not have needs and be low maintenance and kind of do more self-soothing in that way. And that worked out. And this isn't also to like beat up your folks or anything like that. You know, people offer children insecure attachment because maybe they have mental health issues or financial issues or so many kids in the house, or they have avoidant attachment themselves and don't know any different. So, but it's just helpful to get an idea of like, this is me. And then you can take responsibility for it. Your partner knows you. And then you can come up with all these like strategies in order to be you and to support you in the nervous system that you have. Okay, we'll go to the red. I think it's probably next. So this is more me before I was like happily married or like securely functioning with my husband. which is like moved me into the yellow. And when I wrote the book, I was very much yellow and red. But I just want to say, I'm like telling you, this is completely normal. And it's nothing to be ashamed of. But this is like me. And sometimes I go blue too. But feeling more comfortable caring for others than being cared for myself. Separations being hard. Feeling angry with my partner and not knowing why. That can be really confusing for people. I see that a lot in my clinical work. Like, I'm just so angry and I don't know why. And it's just this like, I feel so much empathy towards, you know, my clients and myself when I'm like this. It's just like almost like a colicky baby that just is like, you know. Do I prefer acting with others to being alone? And am I uncomfortable with my needs? And do I have a hard time asking for them to be met? You know, and again, this is what was offered to me, more or less. And so this is how I grew up. And it's empowering to have this information. And for my husband to have this information. You know, we don't use it against each other, our attachment strategies, because that wouldn't be secure functioning. That would be something else. Let's go to the next one. And so this is yellow secure, equally comfortable in my own company and in the company of others, easy commit to relationship projects and goals, easy time adjusting to changing situations and needs, and comfortable with having my needs met myself and expressing them to others as well. Do I find conflict uncomfortable but bearable? And like I can relate to this too, you know, I can relate to the blue as well. But I want to say one thing too about the secure. So you might think that this is like the best strategy. I mean, it's pretty cool, you know, but I have to tell you, even when you are securely attached, there is a developmental leap going from like thinking of yourself in like a one person psychological system to thinking of yourself in like a two-person psychological system, which is that's what secure functioning is. It's both of you matter just as much. You're you're both super important people. Not one's more than another. So even if you're yellow and securely attached, you're still going to have a growing edge when you're navigating and practicing secure functioning with your partner on the daily. You'll have to like remind yourself, yes, they are just as important as I am. It's not unnatural. This is very natural, but we live in a very individualistic culture that doesn't show us this way of being in the world at all. So anyway, I'm just saying everybody's got something to learn here.
Kara, can I ask you a question? Is that okay?
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm kind of curious, like, you know, as you're going through these different attachments, one thing that I was thinking about, and you just talked sort of about, like, we live in an individualistic society. How do you feel, or can you talk about how, like, you know, gendered, like roles and norms and that type, how does that play in, to our attachment? Does it play in? Do those things like overlay with each other? Like our conditioning?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that. I mean, our gender conditioning plays into partnership in a lot of ways that we talk about in Baby Bomb, but that are problematic. But I'm trying to think if they play into attachment. I mean, they would, in the sense of, so there's like a lot of responsibility put on birthing people or people that identify as women to take on a more primary role. And sometimes that includes a lot of unseen, unappreciated mental load work. And if depending on your attachment strategy, you would have different ways of handling that. Like
that's fascinating.
If you were running blue, you might withdraw, do more self-soothing, become like a bit more distant to manage the stress of like having more responsibility than your partner. And if you were running red, you might be a lot more passive aggressive, just throwing a lot of shade. And then if you were yellow, you would probably be aware of your resentment and frustration with it, and hopefully you would have the confidence and the sense of security to say, hey, we got a problem. And let's talk about gender roles and how the patriarchy is affecting our marriage or partnership. And let's get on the same page about this together. Either way, where you fall in the attachment continuum, I would want to help you if you were my couple, do that, externalize the problem, which is the culture.
That's so interesting. Thanks. Thank you. I just had that question I wanted to ask you right away.
Yeah, please feel free to ask questions, anyone who's watching. But let's go to the next slide. So this is really about conflict, kind of like what Molly was just asking about, when your colors flare up. I think it's first of all, really important to know that they're flaring up probably because you don't feel safe. And this is something that people don't realize, because it usually doesn't present itself as I don't feel safe. They feel, they notice themselves getting more self-protective or withdrawing or clinging or coming towards. They're feelings of resentment, disappointment, shame. But underneath it, when your colors are flaring up, it's about a sense of safety. So if you don't feel safe in your partnership, and I say safe, it's so weird because you can be physically safe, but your body can literally be telling you there's something wrong, and if that's happening, it's really important for you to be aware of it, but also for your partner to know, so they can be part of the solution of you feeling safe again. So when you, it says here, when your red or blue colors flare forth, chances are there's a message from your childhood, an earlier relationship, like your attachment. And if you notice yourself being self-protective, explore its origins and see how it might be affecting your partner team. And that would show up as this, my partner's a terrible person, and, trying to protect yourself from your partner. Or you can be being very hard on yourself too. And that would be another indication that your color is flared up, especially if you're blue. Blues have a really hard time with criticism. And so a lot of times when you say to your partner, if they have a blue strategy, I really need your help with this, it can be so hard for them. They think you're saying that they've failed as a partner. And then they can really drop and kind of withdraw into themselves. That would be their colors flaring up. So notice if your mind is speaking in terms of always or never. That's always a suspicious moment for me as a couple therapist, because nobody's always or ever doing anything. Be open to the possibility that you're hurting in some way. So that's just being a little vulnerable there, acknowledging you might be in pain and you might need some care. Investigate what sparked your hurt, talk to your partner. I really like this. I got this from Brene Brown. My mind is telling me a crazy story, or my mind is telling me something. It helps to externalize the thoughts and let your partner know you don't really think this is true, but your mind is telling you that. So then your body's reacting to it and you're signaling I need your help. And I realized that my feelings are hurt when you shut down my idea. So let's go to the next slide. So these are strategies that help during conflict based on like what reds and blues tend to do when fighting. And reds can, there's so much information that I want to share. Reds can tend to, they feel safer and calmer when they're talking. Okay, so let's be empathetic to a red. So they're upset about something that their partner did, and their coping strategy, everyone wants to feel safe. So their coping strategy is to start talking. Okay. But it's not a collaborative talking. It's actually more of an external regulation. They're wanting their partner to regulate their nervous system and help them feel safe. So how that presents in fights is it's like you can find yourself bringing up, you don't do the dishes. And what happened with the car? And then like, you weren't nice to my parents, and like all of these things, like one after another. And you got to understand from the Reds' point of view, they're just doing anything they can to feel safe again, even though it's actually very destructive because they're not actually getting any resolution on any of these matters, but they're just acting out in that way. If they feel criticized, or if you're red and you feel criticized, try to pause before responding. And it's always okay to ask for help, to say to your partner, I need to be reminded we're on the same side and that you still like me, and then like building yourself up like that can help you take care of that conflict better. And then another things Reds tend to do is it's actually hard for them to find resolution, not because they're not creative and they can't find it, but it's actually kind of scary for them to end the fight. So it's not uncommon for them as they like hone in on a win-win. And we talk about this in the book, is a way to navigate conflict, how to end conflict is finding these win-wins. If you're red, you can notice yourself getting more upset at the end, and that's okay. It's to be expected. It doesn't mean you haven't found a win-win. So you're kind of finding ways to soothe yourself, or your partner helps soothe you. Okay, the next one. Yeah, so blues, their nervous system really needs, they need to be alone for a little bit to recalibrate. And they don't need to be shamed for this. So if you or your partner run blue, it's important that if it's you learn to know when you're starting to get overwhelmed and you need a break, that you say, I love you, I need a break, and I'll be back in like 10 minutes, and stick to it. It's good for your relationship to stick to it, but it's actually good for you to stick to it. To like show yourself that you can come back to that conversation, even though it can be scary, but you're working with your nervous system here to not just like, we're not trying to white knuckle your marriage. Working with who you are and not trying to change or shame who you are. Your body gets overwhelmed. It needs to pull away, go for a walk, or do something, or scroll on your phone, or do something that's very auto-regulating, and then come back. The criticism I mentioned is hard for blues. So it's important to try to frame it as it's my behavior, not me. Like Brene Brown says, like, I made a mistake, I'm not a mistake, making that distinguish thing. And mantras help for blues too, providing that self-support. Okay, let's go to the next one. Yes, and then if your partner's blue, like again, not being shaming about who they are, supporting their nervous systems, but keeping them accountable to working things out with you. That's what we're going for. Supporting each other as the people we are, but keeping us accountable to being securely functioning in this relationship. Let's go to the next one. So we started with attachment theory, which is like we move on the continuum, but it's relatively stable, as opposed to like our nervous systems are changing all the time. And if we slow down and become aware of them, like I'm looking down because I'm like checking in with myself, like how am I doing right now? And I'm feeling safe, but I notice like feeling excited, like my blood's pumping more. Yeah, my hands are a little sweaty. Just like checking in with myself and seeing how I'm doing. Like if you've noticed during my talk, like I'm talking quickly and then I catch myself and I take a drink of water because that's a way I'm soothing my nervous system. I'm slowing myself down. So we have in the book this nervous system continuum from like excited to very, very calm. And there's no like good or bad. It's just being a human being. Some moments you're very excited and some moments you're like, could be in shame and on one other end of the nervous system. It's helpful to be able to identify where you are on the nervous system continuum, imagining it goes from excited, high arousal to low arousal, which could be more, like I said, shame, depression. Then, there's sadness. There's like variations of it. And then like, panic would be on the high side of it. It's helpful to know that for yourself so you can take care of yourself. You're also always, parenting is like the ultimate like show, not tell event. Like your baby, your child, your children, you may think that they're like listening to what you're saying, but they're really like watching. How is she going to handle this moment? And then like they're learning this is how you be a person in the world. And so knowing how to like navigate your own nervous system, you're learning, but you're teaching your kid how to do that. And what a valuable skill for them to know that they can calm themselves down or lift themselves up. And you can do this for each other. We have in the book this whole idea called Sherlocking, where you get to know your partner's nervous system tells. And so you can get an idea of like where they are in the continuum. Most of communication is nonverbal. So your partner might not be saying to you, I'm feeling depressed, but they might show it. Or I'm feeling afraid, but they might show it. So that can be really helpful. And then when we actually learn about like the nervous system, how to regulate each other, we have 4 different ways we regulate our nervous systems, you guys, and they're all natural. There's self-regulation, which is kind of like flow state. There's external regulation, and we talked about that with Reds, that like to feel safe, they have to talk it out. There's auto regulation, and Blues tend to use that more. And that's like more of like when you're scrolling on your phone or you're playing a video game. And then there's co-regulation, which is another person and you are actually regulating each other's nervous systems in real time in a completely mutually beneficial way. And we teach you how to do this in the book because it's such a game changer, especially as for parents who your baby comes into this world and they're born knowing how to auto regulate, not how to self-regulate. So you as a caregiver, it's important to know like you're tired because you're constantly regulating your baby's nervous system. It's this constant finding the baby, losing the baby, finding the baby and losing the baby. That attunement, it's establishing secure attachment, but it's also can be really wearing for the caregiver to constantly have their nervous system caring for the babies. So knowing how for partners to tend to each other's nervous systems can be like a game changer for partnership, especially in early parenthood. Let's go to the next one and see. Yeah, so the co-regulation, so that's kind of like what I was doing. the co-regulation game was like checking in about my nervous system right now. Ways to shift your nervous system. I want to mention like some of these. This is something to try with your partner tonight or right now. You can check in with yourself and get a sense of your breath, your heart rate, all of these different cues. But then what do you do with that information? That's really helpful for everybody in the world. Like, different things could be, some people like lift up their nervous systems by going out and being in nature, reading a book, having a piece of chocolate, getting a hug, having some alone time, meditating, taking a bath. These are all ways that you can shift your nervous system, either to calm yourself down or excite yourself, like ramp yourself up. Listen to like music, be inspired, call a friend, have like an engaging conversation. That's like a way to move from maybe a sadder place to like just like maybe a little up on the continuum. Again, there's not good or bad. I'm just saying, if you want to move yourself, there's ways to do this. And you can try this with your partner. Talk to them about your nervous system and what helps them feel safe, and how to help each other out, and maybe explore some tells with each other. But yeah, what do you think? Does that explain your nervous system questions? Okay. Thumbs up from
Yeah, that was
Molly.
great. That was wonderful.
So thanks so much for being with me. I want to say, if you want more, come to karahoppe.com. I have 2 classes coming up. One is with author and birthing expert Britta Brushell. It's called Relationship Restoration. It's March 2nd and 9th. It'll be late for you guys in the Midwestern time because it's late on the Pacific Coast. It's at 8 p.m. But anyway, it's really affordable class. And then I'm really excited about this, a 5-week online retreat, win-win parenting, better partners make better parents, through the PACT Institute. The information's at karahoppe.com. And that starts at the end of April 23rd. It's 5 Saturdays in the middle of the day for nap time. And
That's perfect.
And we cover 5 guiding principles from Baby Bomb, and it's for you and your partner to do together. And it's a lot more affordable than couple therapy. And I think there's a lot of tools and skills we're going to offer.